Banksy, Mr. Brainwash, and the documentary that changed street art. Last updated, July 2026. Banksy's street work blurred the line between vandalism and gallery value, the central tension of exit through the gift shop. Banksy's street work blurred the line between vandalism and gallery value, the central tension of exit through the gift shop. Introduction. Exit Through the Gift Shop begins as a documentary about street art and gradually transforms into something much harder to classify. It is the story of Thierry Guetta, a French-born Los Angeles shopkeeper who compulsively recorded his life with a video camera. Through a family connection to the artist Invader, Guetta gained access to the secretive world of street art. He began filming artists installing unauthorized works at night, eventually documenting Shepard Fairey and gaining extraordinary access to Banksy. Guetta claimed that he was making the definitive documentary about the movement. The problem was that he did not appear capable of turning his enormous collection of videotapes into a coherent film. Banksy eventually took control of the footage. Guetta, meanwhile, was encouraged to make art himself. He adopted the name Mr. Brainwash, hired a production team, created hundreds of works, and launched an enormous Los Angeles exhibition called Life is Beautiful. The exhibition became a sensation. The resulting film, directed by Banksy, premiered at the Sundance Film Festival on January 24, 2010. It was narrated by Rhys Ifans and later received an Academy Award nomination for Best Documentary Feature, but the film left audiences with an unresolved question: did Banksy document the accidental creation of a successful artist, or did he manufacture Mr. Brainwash as the greatest prank of his career? That question remains central to the film's reputation. Yet the possibility of deception is only part of what makes Exit Through the Gift Shop important. The film is also a rare visual archive of street artists working before social media made their activities continuously visible, a study of how attention creates artistic value, a critique of the commercialization of anti-establishment art, a portrait of obsession and reinvention, an examination of authorship and artistic labor, a warning about the power of endorsements, a demonstration of how publicity can become part of the artwork, the founding mythology of Mr. Brainwash's career. Whether every scene is accepted literally or not, the film accurately identified one of the defining tensions in contemporary art. An artist can criticize commercial culture while becoming a highly valuable commercial brand. Banksy understood that contradiction. Thierry Guetta lived it. Collectors continue to participate in it. More than a street art documentary. A conventional documentary about street art might have introduced several artists, explained their techniques, documented unauthorized installations, and concluded with a discussion of legality or cultural significance. Exit Through the Gift Shop initially appears to be that kind of film. Its early footage offers remarkable access to street artists working under conditions of secrecy. Viewers see images being prepared, transported, and installed in public spaces. The work is shown not merely as a finished object, but as an event requiring planning, speed, physical risk, and trust. Then the film changes direction. The supposed filmmaker becomes the subject. The camera passes from Thierry Guetta to Banksy. Guetta passes from observer to artist. Street art passes from clandestine intervention to celebrity spectacle. A movement rooted partly in opposition to institutional permission becomes a highly marketable visual category. The film's structure embodies that transformation. It begins in the street and ends inside an exhibition where people line up to purchase art. That is the meaning of the title. In a museum or major cultural attraction, visitors are often directed through a retail area before leaving. The experience ends with an opportunity to purchase something that represents the experience. Art becomes merchandise, identity, memory, and proof of participation. Exit Through the Gift Shop asks whether street art can enter that system without being fundamentally changed. It never provides a clean answer. The film captured a transitional moment. The documentary was assembled during a period when street art was moving rapidly into mainstream visual culture. Artists who had built reputations through unauthorized public work were being represented by galleries, collected by celebrities, and offered at major auction houses. Images that could once be painted over by a property owner were now being removed, protected, sold, and insured. The movie does not treat this shift as a simple victory. The central joke of the film is that Mr. Brainwash appears to understand the mechanisms of this new market before he understands art itself. He recognizes that an artist needs a memorable name, a recognizable visual language, large-scale production, influential endorsements, press attention. scarcity or the appearance of scarcity, a dramatic exhibition, crowds, high prices, a compelling origin story. What he may lack in artistic development, he replaces with momentum. Banksy later described Guetta as someone who had effectively trespassed into the art business. Banksy also argued that the reduction of traditional gatekeeping could be understood as liberating. Artists no longer necessarily needed formal education, established gallery approval, or conventional career development before reaching an audience. The film therefore operates simultaneously as criticism and celebration. Mr. Brainwash may represent everything wrong with the art market. He may also represent the radical possibility that anyone can declare themselves an artist and force the public to respond. By the time Exit Through the Gift Shop was released, Banksy had already achieved the paradoxical status of being world-famous while remaining publicly anonymous. His identity was concealed, but his visual language was immediately recognizable. Banksy's practice used stencils, dark humor, political criticism, and unexpected public interventions. His images often addressed war, surveillance, consumerism, inequality, policing, and institutional power. Anonymity served several practical and artistic functions. Unauthorized street installations could create legal exposure. Concealment protected the person behind the work, but anonymity also strengthened the mythology. The absence of an ordinary public identity allowed Banksy to function less as a conventional individual and more as an idea. Banksy could appear anywhere. The artist's secrecy also made Thierry Guetta's access exceptionally important. A person permitted to film Banksy working was not simply recording another painter in a studio. He was entering a carefully protected system built around trust and controlled visibility. Banksy's relationship with the art market was contradictory long before the documentary. His works criticized capitalism, status, and cultural institutions, while attracting collectors and increasing prices. This tension was not incidental, it became part of the appeal. Collectors could acquire art that mocked collectors. Auction houses could sell work that criticized auction houses. Luxury buyers could purchase anti-consumerist imagery. Banksy's success demonstrated that criticism of a system can be absorbed by the system and converted into value. Exit Through the Gift Shop extends this contradiction into cinema. Banksy directs a film about the commercialization of street art. The film strengthens Banksy's own cultural importance. It also helps establish another commercially successful artist. If the movie is a warning about hype, it became an extremely effective generator of hype. If it is a critique of branding, it strengthened multiple brands. That does not make the critique invalid, it makes the film more complicated. Street art is unusually dependent on documentation. A work installed without authorization may be removed quickly. Weather, city cleaning, construction, property owners, and other artists can erase it. In some instances, the photograph or video becomes more historically durable than the artwork itself. Guetta's footage therefore had value even if Guetta lacked conventional filmmaking ability. He had recorded artists, preparing work, selecting locations, traveling at night, climbing buildings, applying posters, installing mosaics, cutting stencils, reacting to police and security, discussing their motivations, working before their market reputations were fully established. He did not merely possess interviews recorded after the movement became famous. He had footage from inside its development. This distinction helps explain why Banksy did not simply reject Guetta's failed film and walk away. The underlying material was historically valuable. The person who filmed it was becoming increasingly fascinating. A Banksy stencil on the West Bank barrier, the kind of ephemeral, high-risk installation Guetta's camera preserved. Through the street art community, Guetta began filming Shepard Fairey. Fairey had already developed a highly recognizable public campaign around Andre the Giant and OB imagery. His work demonstrated how repetition, design discipline, and distribution could turn an initially unexplained image into a global visual phenomenon. Guetta accompanied Fairey during installations and travel. The footage gave viewers access to the physical work behind Obey's apparent omnipresence. Posters did not reproduce themselves, they had to be printed, transported, pasted, and repeatedly replaced. Fairey's importance to the story extends beyond his appearance on camera. He became a subject of Guetta's filming, a bridge to Banksy, an influence on Guetta's understanding of image repetition, a public supporter of the first Mr. Brainwash exhibition, a critic of Guetta's artistic originality, a witness whose comments complicated the hoax theory. Fairey's relationship with Guetta cannot be reduced to friendship or hostility. He recognized Guetta's determination and promoted the Life is Beautiful opening. A contemporary announcement through Obey described the exhibition as extraordinarily ambitious and noted Fairey would DJ. The same announcement included Banksy's deliberately double-edged description of Mr. Brainwash as a phenomenon. And I don't mean that in a good way. Fairey later made clear he did not regard Guetta's early work as highly original. When asked whether Mr. Brainwash had been invented by Banksy as a hoax, Fairey denied it and said his participation was driven in part by a desire to recover access to Guetta's years of footage. This position resists simple explanations and shows how endorsement functions as cultural currency. Banksy was the person Guetta most wanted to film and the person least accessible to an ordinary cameraman. His anonymity was not a minor preference. It was essential to his legal protection, public mythology, and operating method. According to the film's narrative, Guetta finally met Banksy in 2006 after Banksy needed assistance during a Los Angeles visit. Guetta's relationship with Fairey and his reputation for protecting artists made the introduction possible. Trust through action. The documentary portrays Guetta as useful because he knew Los Angeles could assist with logistics and was willing to follow Banksy into difficult situations. The relationship deepened through shared activity rather than a formal interview. One of the film's most memorable episodes concerns Banksy's installation of an inflatable figure dressed as a Guantanamo Bay detainee inside Disneyland. Guetta was detained by security but managed to preserve the footage. Within the film's narrative, this proved that he would protect the material and the artist. The episode is important whether considered purely factual or partly shaped through editing. It establishes Guetta as loyal. It also positions the camera as an object of risk. The footage is not merely passive observation. It could create legal problems, expose identities, or preserve evidence.
Banksy appears with his face hidden and voice altered. This creates a strange form of authority. The audience cannot independently verify the speaker through ordinary visual identification, but the documentary asks viewers to accept him as Banksy. His anonymity, rather than weakening the character, strengthens the effect. Banksy controls how much can be seen. Guetta tried to make a film about him, so he made a film about Guetta.
Before Exit Through the Gift Shop, there was Life Remote Control. This was the title associated with Guetta's attempt to turn his street art archive into a documentary. In Exit Through the Gift Shop, Life Remote Control is presented as an aggressive, disorienting and nearly unwatchable barrage of images. It demonstrates that Guetta has accumulated extraordinary material, but lacks the discipline to shape it. The failed documentary provides the narrative hinge. Banksy realizes that Guetta is not the filmmaker everyone assumed he was. He takes control of the footage and directs Guetta toward making art. The exchange reverses their roles. The Joachim Levy complication. The history of Life Remote Control is less simple than the documentary suggests. Filmmaker Joachim Levy said he had helped organize, catalog, and edit Guetta's material into a version of the project before Banksy took over. Despite later disagreements, Levy reportedly acknowledged that most of the broader story presented in Exit Through the Gift Shop was true. This does not prove that Guetta was an accomplished filmmaker. It does suggest that the image of completely untouched and randomly stored tapes may have been simplified for dramatic effect. This is a useful example of how documentaries work. The difference between these statements is significant. Guetta had no organized project whatsoever. Guetta had a project but could not create a satisfactory final film. Guetta worked with others on a project that Banksy later reconstructed. The project existed partly to enable Banksy's film. The available evidence most strongly supports the middle possibilities. Why the failure matters. Life Remote Control needs to fail for the structure of Exit Through the Gift Shop to work. If Guetta produced a polished documentary, Banksy would have less reason to intervene. If Banksy did not intervene, Guetta might remain behind the camera. If Guetta remained behind the camera, there would be no Mr. Brainwash origin story. The failure therefore becomes productive. Guetta's inability to complete one creative project creates the conditions for another. This pattern also reflects a larger theme in the film. Incompetence and success are not always opposites. A person may fail at the intended task while accidentally discovering a more valuable role. Guetta fails to become the definitive filmmaker of street art. He succeeds in becoming its most controversial documentary subject, the film's dripping red poster, billed as the world's first street art disaster movie. The camera changes hands. The central reversal occurs when Banksy assumes control of Guetta's footage. The artist who was supposed to be the documentary's mysterious subject becomes its director. The man who believed he was the filmmaker becomes the principal character. Banksy summarized the structure through the idea that Guetta tried to make a film about him, so he made a film about Guetta. The line is funny, but it also describes a transfer of authorship. Guetta created much of the raw material. Banksy controlled the final meaning, editing as artistic power. A documentary is not simply the footage that was recorded, it is the selection, arrangement and interpretation of that footage. Thousands of hours of material can support countless possible narratives. An editor determines which events appear important, which contradictions are emphasized, which people appear credible, which scenes are comic, which details are omitted, how chronology is presented. When music changes the tone, where the audience is encouraged to feel suspicion, Banksy's authorship therefore lies partly in framing. Guetta's footage may be real, but the story told with that footage is a construction. That does not make it false. Every documentary is constructed. The unusual element is that exit through the gift shop makes construction itself part of the subject. Viewers are repeatedly reminded that images can be selected and recontextualized, the same process used in street art and pop art. Sending Guetta away to make art. According to the film, Banksy encouraged Guetta to return to Los Angeles, make some art and organize an exhibition. This suggestion can be interpreted in several ways. A distraction: Banksy may have wanted Guetta occupied while the footage was reorganized. A genuine challenge: Banksy may have believed that years of exposure to artists had prepared Guetta to experiment. A test: Banksy may have wanted to see what happened when someone copied the visible mechanics of an art career. A documentary strategy: Banksy may have recognized that filming Guetta becoming an artist would provide a stronger ending than merely salvaging the original footage. A conceptual artwork: Banksy may have intentionally created the conditions for Mr. Brainwash as a critique of the market. These explanations are not mutually exclusive. The suggestion may have begun as a casual solution and evolved into something more deliberate once Guetta responded at enormous scale. Thierry Guetta adopted the name Mr. Brainwash, commonly shortened to MBW. The name immediately evokes advertising, propaganda, repetition, mass media, manipulation, consumer psychology, and cultural conditioning. It also creates a central ambiguity. Is Mr. Brainwash the person brainwashing the audience, or has the audience watched Guetta become brainwashed by the art world he filmed? The name is almost too perfect for the documentary's themes, which is one reason some viewers consider it evidence of a constructed project. Yet perfect branding is also consistent with Guetta's commercial instincts. He understood the value of a memorable identity. Mr. Brainwash's early visual language combined recognizable features of pop art and street art. His works used celebrity photographs, stenciled figures, altered logos, spray paint, repeated images, pop cultural jokes and graffiti-style backgrounds, references to Warhol, Banksy, and Fairey. Critics viewed the work as derivative. Supporters could argue that appropriation and repetition were already established strategies within pop art and street art. The real issue was whether his transformation of that imagery was sufficiently original, thoughtful, or technically developed. The film largely encourages skepticism. It presents Guetta as generating rapid concepts while assistants and fabricators turn them into objects. Guetta did not prepare the exhibition alone. He employed people with design, printing, fabrication, and installation skills. The team helped convert ideas into paintings, prints, and sculpture.